Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to round two coverage of my games from the 2019 Western States Open. In round two, I was facing a player who was rated 1875, and my rating for the tournament was 1801. Round two was at 7 o'clock in the evening. That's when the game started. And with this time control, game or 40 moves in 2 hours plus game in an hour, the games could last up to 6 hours. So this round could go till 1 in the morning, making it the latest round of the tournament. It's not so common that happens, but it can happen, and it can be very tiring, especially if you're still a little bit tired from traveling in to see the tournament. This game did not go that long. In fact, this game was kind of short, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a travelogue after I'm through with the game. So when you start seeing pictures of Reno, that's when the chess is over, and you can wait for the next video for the next round. If you're not interested in pictures of Reno. Anyway, let's get on with the game. I'll say a few things after we put a few moves on the board. Let's see. He started with e4. I went c5, Sicilian, knight f3, d6, and bishop b5 check. Okay, I just wanted to get up to this point. Here I have a couple of moves that I've played before. I've played knight c6 before, and I played bishop d7 before. And there's also a third move, knight to d7, which is kind of interesting. But for me, I had to choose between the two moves I was familiar with. And after that round one game, I was feeling like maybe my chess was a bit shaky because I had a solid lead throughout that game, and then right at the end, in two moves, I turned it around from a win to a loss. So I was not inclined to take any big chances. So I played the safest move here, which is bishop d7, and that led to an even game. So that's how the game went. Let's talk about some of these other choices first before we get to the game. There is knight to d7, and I've not played this myself, but this is a move that you can play if you want to play for a win as black. You want to keep all the force on the board. Because of the knight on d7, bishop takes knight is not such a attractive prospect to white. White is kind of giving up the bishop pair for no compensation. And so this line will keep all of the minor pieces on. And so you have chances. But I've just never played that, so that's why I didn't play that. If we back up to the game, I played bishop d7. But knight c6 is a move I've played before, and I think it's kind of interesting. If white castles here, that's a line you can play bishop d7, so you're prepared to take back with a piece. White will often line up with the rook and maybe try and get some quick action going on the e-file before you've had a chance to castle and get the king out of there. So it's kind of a double-edged position, and with chances for both sides. It's pretty interesting. And another way that white can play this is white can just take the knight here, give up the bishop pair immediately, but inflict some pawn damage, and then castle. And black has this interesting move here I wanted to mention, e5. I had this position in a game once, and I felt to me like white got some real pressure, and so I wasn't inclined to go for this position. But I think but that was before I knew about this e5 move. So I think if I had remembered that I can play e5 and get an equal position here, I might have considered playing this. But as it is, like I said, I was feeling a little bit shaky about my chess in general, and I had had one bad experience on that knight c6 line. So I went with bishop d7. But this does lead to a position, it's pretty even, but it's also difficult for both sides to get a winning advantage. If you look at the statistics for this, it's very drawish. Let's see. So he took, and that's normal, and I took back with the queen. You have two ways of taking back, but taking back with the queen is considered better because the knight has a good square on c6 then, and you want to take advantage of that. So that's why taking back with the queen is considered the better move here. And now white once again has a couple of choices how to proceed with the game. He could castle here. That's what I've seen most often. Let's see, let's put that on the board. Castle, say knight c6, c3, preparing to build up in the center. Knight to f6, bring the other knight out. Rook to e1, defending the e-pawn, e6, and d4. And we get this clash in the center and an interesting struggle. Although there's only one pair of minor pieces has been traded, and but in this case neither side has the bishop pair advantage. So neither side is really going for an endgame here. They're going for a middle game struggle with tension in the center. Let's see. In the game, my opponent played the other main move here. There's actually two main moves in the database here. That's castling is one, and the other is c4. And I don't know if I've seen this before in this exact position, but I've seen the similar ideas. He's going for a Maroczy bind setup. So I continue with knight c6. I mean, the hole in the Maroczy bind is what you want to target. He castled here. Oops. He castled here. I went g6. And then he goes d4. I'm preparing to bring my bishop out, and I might actually get quite a clamp on that d4 square. So he hurries to play d4 before I get that in. So I take, he takes with the knight, and now I play bishop g7. And he goes bishop e3. So at this point, we're actually transposing. After knight f6, f3, and castles, this is a line that could have come from an accelerated dragon. So a Maroczy bind against an accelerated dragon, or even a regular dragon, because this pawn structure is the dragon pawn structure here. So so we've actually transposed into a different opening from the Moscow variation. Let's see. He played knight to c3 here. That's pretty normal. And went rook a c8. The moves we're playing are not always the most popular moves in the database, but they all seem to be fine. I did want to mention that the database likes the move e6 here, and the chess engine too. After a4, maybe a6 had the idea of playing b5, so a4 clamps down on that. Then e6 is how the line goes. Rook to c1 and knight to e5. Kind of an interesting way to play, although not something I would like to play myself, because this pawn on d6 is kind of weak. So I wouldn't want to play this, at least without some research to understand how we deal with this pawn in the future. But well, I am starting to put some pressure on the c pawn. Maybe the rook can come over. He might have to defend with b3, in which case maybe there'll be some weaknesses on the diagonal. Anyway, it leads to interesting play. Going back to the game, I just went rook a c8, which is also in the book and also an okay move. He goes b3 immediately, and now I am looking at this diagonal and wondering if there's any way I can exploit tactics on the diagonal there. So he went, let's see, he went b3, I went rook fd8. Yeah, I did not see anything immediately. So I just start bringing my pieces into the center, and I am thinking maybe I can get in e6 and d5 perhaps. He played rook c1 here, and I played knight takes d4. I decided, well, it's a Maroczy bind position. I'll just trade off some more minor pieces and take it from there, because I didn't see any great tactical ideas for myself at this point. Knight d4, we're actually out of the opening book at that point. Move in the book is e6, although this is once again a small section of the database, so only a few games for examples, but seems this is playable. And then after queen d2, pushing on with d5. So that is an interesting idea. If you can play e6 and follow it up with d5 immediately, you're not stuck with a weak pawn on d6. So yeah, that would lead to kind of an interesting game. And it looks like the center's about to blow up, although it may just lead to a bunch of trades in an even position. Not quite sure. Anyway, I took his knight. He took back. And then I went b6. That was another thing I was worried about over here. He never really had the chance. I mean, at various times you might think he could take here to undefend that pawn and then take. But, well, I can always just take back with a pawn and defend with the queen that way. And there's also ideas of trapping the bishop sometimes on a7. So there was never really a chance to grab that pawn. But this way, I played b6 here, and that just puts it into those ideas altogether. The chess engine did not like that move. So up until this point, I can't say I've made any real mistakes, but that move is a bit questionable. Although, I mean, I considered this alternative. The chess engine likes a6 here. And the thing I don't like it is it creates a weakness. The thing I don't like about it is it creates a weakness on b6 there. So there's two ideas. One is the knight could come into b6 supported by the bishop, forking my pieces. I mean, that could be annoying. Or the bishop could just park itself there and chase my knight away from the d file. And then, well, maybe white could double on the d file first and then push one of those pawns forward after undefending or reducing the number of defenders around my queen. So I really didn't like that, but the chess engine thinks that that is actually the way to play it. It doesn't think b6 is losing or anything, so certainly still a playable move, but it doesn't find that the best. Anyway, after b6, he continued with queen d2. Went queen b7. I was kind of getting away from this in advance, and I wanted to be able to push some pawns forward at some point without having to deal with a queen trade. And, you know, it looked like also he was going to double on the d file and maybe threaten to push some of his pawns forward, so I had to be wary of that as well. He did go rook fd1 here, and I went a6. I wanted to stop his knight from hopping into the b5 square and maybe causing some trouble over here. And I was also thinking maybe I'm working up to the b5 move and trying to get some pressure on the queen side. So that was what I was thinking. But I didn't realize until after he played this knight d5 move, I had created a weakness here, right? I pushed the a pawn forward and create a weakness on the b pawn, so weakness of the last move. Now, I don't think knight d5 is actually a good move here. I think that's actually a mistake. The chess engine would play like this. You play a4 here, and it thinks white has a slight edge. Well, more than a slight edge. It actually likes quite a lot, say 1 point. It's hard for me to see it. I think white's main advantage is a space advantage. I don't think there's any big tactical advantage here, but for what it's worth, the chess engine gives this line. Among others, there's various ways to play it, but it thinks this is a line. So knight to d7. The knight here is looking at those squares and also offering a trade of the bishops, then knight d5. So waiting till black has moved the knight out of the way, then playing knight d5. Of course, this pawn is adequately defended now, so it's not an issue anymore. In fact, knight to c5 and queen c2, because the knight was hitting that pawn and threatening a fork. And it thinks white is slightly better here. There are checks on this diagonal, of course, but my king will just step back. I have to worry about keeping the e-pawn defended. So there are some ideas for white here, but I don't see any big breakthrough, and I didn't see any trying to follow along that line with the chess engine. So, you know, I think it's just a position where white has an edge because of the greater space advantage. And if white can ever force me to play e6 to chase that knight away, if the knight becomes so annoying that I have to do that, then I'll be left with a weakness on d6. So that's something white can play for. And in the meantime, I can think about pushing b5 maybe at some point and creating weaknesses on the queen side against his pawns. Anyway, a couple of ideas there. But he didn't play that. He played knight d5. And this is a very forcing move, but the position it leads to just seems to be very even. So it's forcing because I don't really have any way to defend that pawn, and I'm not ready to push it. So I pretty much have to take. And let's see. And now he traded bishops here. The bishop doesn't really want to retreat, and it's going to get traded one way or another. So he takes. And then he took here with the queen. I took back. He took with the pawn. I played h5. And he offered a draw at this point. And I accepted because, you know, there's not a whole lot going on. He could have considered this move, but that would force another trade. And then that pawn might be a bit exposed. It's kind of too far forward for these pawns to support. So that's actually a dangerous move for white. And there just doesn't seem to be any big winning chances for white here. I mean, the chess engine still gives white a slight edge because of the space advantage, I would assume. But if white trades, you know, I get the open file. If I trade, white gets the open file. So neither side wants to trade at this point. We'll probably just walk our kings over like this, so as to enable the trades, trade off the rooks, and it'll be an even end game. So I think agreeing to a draw here was not too soon, even though it seemed early. This is actually only move 20 in the game. So that's it for the chess in this video. I'm going to show some pictures of Reno and talk about the trip a little bit, and then stay tuned for round 3 coverage coming up next. The Sands Regency was where the tournament was held in Reno, and it looks like they were in the middle of a renovation project there. The rooms had been spruced up a little bit. There was a nicer shower fixtures, and there was a coffee machine, which I remember last time there wasn't even a coffee machine in the room. So things have improved. And then they put these statues on the outside. This thing here was there were lights flowing up and down, and during the day it was just white cubes in sort of a tree shape here, and then at night there was music playing, and there was a little bit of a light show there with the lights varying on the tree. So that was at one corner of one of the parking lots, and on the other side, the other parking lot, it was there was this unusual looking figure here. Let's see, in the daylight you can see it looked like this. I'm guessing this is some kind of Japanese armor, and then it has this weird thing on its head. And then at night it's a little bit lit up, so you can see that dramatic effect there. Anyway, it's good to see the Sands getting fixed up. It was looking a little run down the last time I was there, so things are looking up for the hotel. Between rounds, I went for some walks. The Truckee River flows right through downtown Reno. So there's this nice riverwalk district. You can see this on the left side of the river. I'm a little bit upstream looking downstream. On the left and the right sides of the river, there's parks and walkways, and then there's restaurants and stuff along there that you can go to. So it's a pretty nice area, good for a walk and a short distance from the hotel. Here's a mobile piece of art. This thing was spinning around. This is also just the other side of the bridge going across the river. And here's another shot upstream looking downtown Reno. And then I went and took another walk in another section of town, and there was this nice tree in fall colors by a little community park here with a pond. So I thought that was a pretty view as well. Anyway, it was great weather the whole time I was in Reno. Well, there was one day it was kind of windy and a little bit overcast. For the most part, it was a little bit cool, a little bit of wind, but bright and sunny. So very, very nice weather, and good conditions for the tournament overall. So had a good time, and I can recommend it to you if you're ever in the area. They have 2 tournaments a year at Reno. One, the Western States Open in the fall, and then the other one is the Larry Evans Memorial in the spring, and they're kind of similar in their setup with the slow time controls, and they have traditionally been held at the Sands Regency for many years now. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.